My mother-in-law unpacked her bags in our living room. My wife said, "She's living here now. If you don't like it, you can leave." I replied, "Deal." Then I left the house, which was built on land I inherited from my grandfather, and filed a quiet title action. When the sheriff arrived with the eviction notice, my wife discovered she'd been living on borrowed property all along. Let me be clear, the land our house sits on has been in my family for 4 generations. My grandfather left it to me with documentation going back to 1952. When Laura and I married 7 years ago, we built our home on that property. Her name went on the mortgage, but the land deed stayed solely in mine. Laura's mother, Diane, has despised me since our wedding day. I wasn't good enough. My family had land, but no status. I worked as a project manager, while Diane constantly reminded everyone her ex-husband was a cardiologist. For years, Diane lived comfortably in a condo her divorce settlement paid for. Then she made catastrophic financial decisions. A boyfriend's failed restaurant, credit cards treated like free money, a timeshare she couldn't escape. The hints started last Christmas. "Your house is so big for just 2 people." Laura began taking private phone calls that stopped when I entered rooms. 3 weeks ago, I came home to find Diane's Mercedes in our driveway and moving boxes in the garage. Inside, Diane was directing movers while Laura supervised. "What's happening?" I asked. "Mom lost her condo. She has nowhere to go. I told her she could stay until she gets back on her feet. For how long? However long it takes." I reminded Laura we'd agreed, together, that neither parent would move in without both of us consenting. She'd suggested it herself after watching her sister's marriage implode over the same issue. "That was different," she said. "This is an emergency." That's when Diane appeared in the doorway. "I already heard everything, Daniel. Don't worry. I know when I'm not wanted." She didn't leave. Over 2 weeks, Diane transformed our home, rearranged furniture, threw away decorations she found tacky, installed a lock on the guest room door. She criticized my cooking, my TV volume, how I loaded the dishwasher. When I confronted Laura, she accused me of being heartless. "She's my mother. Why can't you just be supportive?" I pointed out Diane had 2 other children, a brother in Phoenix, a sister in Tampa, both with larger homes. "She doesn't speak to them," Laura said, as if that explained everything. The final straw came when I found my grandfather's tools, the ones he'd used to clear this land 60 years ago, piled by the garbage cans. Diane said they were rusty eyesores. That night, I told Laura her mother needed to leave within 2 weeks, or I was consulting a divorce attorney. "This is her home now too. If you can't accept that, maybe you should leave. You're always talking about how this is your land." "Fine, take your precious land. Mom and I will keep the house." She didn't understand. "Deal," I said. "My buddy Marcus is a real estate attorney. They can't keep the house without the land," he confirmed. "The structure sits entirely on your parcel. Laura's name is on the mortgage, but the mortgage is for the building. You hold clear title to the land, meaning if you revoke permission to occupy your land, they're trespassing. The house becomes worthless. They can't pick it up and move it." I filed for divorce and formal notice revoking permission for non-owners to reside on my property. 30 days later, the sheriff arrived at what Laura still thought was her house. She opened the door expecting a routine visit. Instead, the deputy handed her eviction documents. "There must be some mistake. This is my house." The deputy explained the mortgage meant nothing without land rights. The bank owned a building on someone else's property. My property. Diane screamed about calling her lawyer. Problem was, she'd burned through her money and couldn't afford one. Laura called me that afternoon. "How could you do this? Where are we supposed to go?" "You told me to leave. You told me to take my land. I did exactly what you asked. I didn't think you didn't think I'd enforce my property rights? The same land you told me to take while you kept my house?" The divorce finalized 3 months later. Without land rights, the house was worthless. Laura ended up owing the bank more than she received. Diane moved in with her son in Phoenix, the one she hadn't spoken to in 8 years. I'm building a smaller cabin now. No guest room.